Welcome. Welcome and good evening, everyone. I'm so glad you could join us this evening for our beach balls, traffic, and sunscreen themed market, coronavirus, and economic update. Again, thank you so much for joining us. This month, I'm celebrating my 30th year in business, my 30th anniversary, May 1, 1990. Is where it all started. And I must say that 2 months ago, 3 months ago, I would have never imagined that this is how I would be spending, which I thought was going to be a major milestone to stop and celebrate. This is never, I would have never imagined this is how I would have been spending it. As I'm standing here in the new world headquarters of Cummings Wealth Management Group, which is my master closet. So this is not exactly at all by any stretch how I would be spending it, but I'm glad to report that my team and I are safe, we're healthy, and we're fully functioning and here to serve you and your families. Um, I didn't realize over the last couple of years, as we were putting together contingency plans for what would happen in the event of a hurricane, how much we would need those plans today. You know, we almost got whacked, I think, twice in 2 years by hurricanes, and so we had plans put in place. We're planners; you would expect that from us. So we put plans in place, these contingency plans, to make sure that if the building got leveled or even burnt to the ground, that we could operate and continue to serve you. And I'm happy to report that those plans are working flawlessly. I'm literally standing here at the same stand-up desk, Veridesk, and same monitors that I sit at in my office. My whole team is as well. We literally unplugged everything from the office, put it in our cars, drove it to our respective homes, plugged in, logged on to the virtual private network back at the office, and we've been fully functioning and working as hard as we possibly can to serve you as our clients. So happy to report that those plans are working. Didn't realize I would need them for a global pandemic, but I'm sure glad that we have those in place. So I like to start these meetings and most meetings with a positive focus. And as most of you know, I'm Mr. PMA, positive mental attitude, as I like to call myself. And so I'd asked some people to share some positive focus things with me today. And the first one is, and this is a new index. Now in our world, we're looking at indexes of all kind of things: the consumer price index of inflation, how much the cost of goods and services are going up, the index of various markets and returns and stuff that we use for comparative and benchmark purposes. But there's an index that Nicole actually shared with me, who's one of our speakers today. It's called the Happy Index, and I'm happy to report the news tonight reported that the Happy Index is up. So that's a positive thing in America. The Happy Index is up. Another positive thing to share is this is a great one: is inhale confidence and exhale worries. Inhale confidence and exhale worries. Positive things that we as a team at Cummings Wealth have been doing in the community that we're proud of is, the first responders. My goodness, we've all seen the stories, the tolls that it's taken on them, the doctors, the nurses, the front, I guess, not front first responders, but frontline medical workers. My gosh, they've given so much of time away from their families, risking their lives literally to save lives. So what we've done is a couple times in the last couple of weeks is we provided lunch from Mex One, a local restaurant, to the doctors and nurses and staff at the Medical University of South Carolina, to their emergency room. We've done the same to Roper Hospital, to the emergency room there, just as our way to give back and just thank those people that are risking their lives to help others. And we hope to continue to do that in the coming weeks. Today's overview is what's going on with coronavirus, what's going on with the stock market, the bond markets, the U.S., the international economy, and we're just going to take a deep dive into some of those topics there. And I encourage each and every one of you, if you have any questions that you've thought of today or thinking of now as I'm talking, or that come up throughout the presentation, please email Mary at cummingswealth.com. Most of you have her email address, but again, Mary at cummingswealth.com. Please email those questions to her, and we're going to do our very best to answer those questions throughout the presentation. And if it's something that needs a good bit of research, topics around the CARES Act and the PPP program are very complex, and they're changing daily. Literally, some of the people that we use as resources on some of those topics with PPP are giving me time and date stamps of when they're telling me information, because some of it is changing so rapidly. So some of those things we may need to research, but we will, and we will get back to you on those. So please feel free to send those questions in to Mary@cummingswealth.com. So with that, I'm going to turn it over, introduce our first speaker, who is Nicole Dill. Nicole is a Vice President with JP Morgan. She's based in Chapin, South Carolina, and is a great resource to me and her firm, JP Morgan, is a great resource to the industry. They have one of the leading economists, Dr. David Kelly, who's a fabulous resource to us. And with that, I'll turn it over, Nicole, to you. And so I'll stop sharing my screen here. Bear with me as I pull up some slides for Nicole to go over. Should be coming up now.
Excellent.
Takes a little longer with the VPN logging back into the office.
Got to be secure.
Yes, absolutely. And with these storms we've had here today, it's a miracle it's all still working.
Yes. Technology is amazing. And while we're waiting on the slides to pull up, and thank you so much, Bobby. And yeah, the number on that happy index, 63% of Americans feel happier now than they did even 2 weeks ago, which is just amazing. The slides that we're going to present tonight are actually from Dr. David Kelly and his team of market economists and strategists. We call it our Guide to the Markets, and it's a piece that he and his team have put out for over a decade now. What I love most about the research is there's no commentary, there's no product. It is simply charts and graphs on markets and economies around the world. And is a wonderful resource that actually that team updates by 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time every single day now, which is just beyond amazing, with as quickly as the markets and everything are changing with the global pandemic. Excellent. Thank you. And hopefully all of you can see their first slide there, which is our slide 26. So what we're going to do is start with a quick update on COVID. And the first slide just looks at the United States. So on the right-hand side, what we're doing is tracking the 7-day moving average and the change in confirmed cases and fatalities, just to have a better visual representation of flattening the curve, which you can see not only have we flattened it, but it's actually going down, which is especially what we want to see. Now, the virus is still spreading and testing hasn't caught up all the way, so the true mortality rate is difficult to assess. Confirmed cases vastly undercount the spread of the virus. So we think, more testing will show, assuming a true mortality rate between 0.5 and 1.5, and recognizing that lag between the infection and death for those who pass away from the disease, implies that we are making a difference. So we've flattened the curve in both confirmed cases as well as mortality, which is exactly what we wanted to see. Now, in terms of the rest of the world, if we move to the next slide, what you can see is a global look at COVID and weekly growth in cumulative cases, which will be represented on the x-axis, and then the crude mortality rate on the y-axis. The size of the bubble represents the share of the population infected, And we'll see that, there we go. So we can see the size of the bubble represents the share of the population infected for several developed market, which you're going to see in gray, right? We hear a lot about Italy, Spain, France, of course, US. You can see we're kind of more in that middle. And then emerging markets in purple, where you can see South Korea, Turkey, China, Russia, Brazil. Really where you want to be on this slide is the lower left-hand corner. So we can see, different folks having different degrees of success. It dramatically varies around the world. So countries like South Korea, Taiwan, using intense testing and contact tracing early on have slowed the spread of the virus, keeping their mortality rates low and keeping infections low. In Spain, on the other hand, a large portion of the population has been infected. It spread fast. The mortality rate is high. Sweden adopted a much less restrictive policy than other nations. And you can see they are paying a bit of the price in mortality right now. So that's kind of where COVID is around the globe and here in the US. Now, if we move to the next slide, we can talk through social distancing. And what, in essence, we're trying to do is hold the economy in suspended animation and give, our medical, and thank you, Bobby, for mentioning all of our first responders and what a tremendous job they are doing. Give, therapies and hopefully a vaccine, chance to catch up. But economic activity and employment by earnings in industry, we're breaking out on this slide. So if we start in the upper left-hand corner, we can see 20% of our growth, basically, or GDP in this country comes from these specific sectors that are just being hit hardest by the social distancing, right? Hotels, tourism, entertainment. We can't go to sporting events, restaurants, bars. So we can see the hit it's taking. Also, you can see how many folks that it means in terms of total employment. Again, 20% of all the jobs in this country come from those sectors. So now you've got, 35 million people out of work. And of course, it's having a huge impact on the economy. If we move to the next slide, as if all of that wasn't enough, we also had a perfect trifecta, if you will, within the oil markets. So even heading into or pre-COVID, we had an oversupply of oil, and then throw in a little war with Russia's and Saudis so that they make even more, causing the prices to drop. Then you have complete demand destruction temporarily by a global pandemic, and now we have no place to store it. So again, perfect trifecta: too much, no demand, and no place to put it. And you saw the futures go negative. Now you can see it's come back quite a bit, but it has just been one hit after the other for us in 2020. Now let's talk about what the Fed has done to help the situation. So they basically, hit it with a bazooka and then threw the kitchen sink on top of it, right? We, in essence, cut interest rates to zero. We started unlimited quantitative easing again. We've reinstituted various lending facilities. It has done everything it can. But what we really needed was not a loan, but a grant. So then we needed the government to step in. So if we move to the next slide, we can see what they did within the CARES Act, which of course stands for the Coronavirus and Relief Act. The devil is in the details. And this act is big, the largest ever done. It's over 3 trillion at this point, more than 3 times what we did during the financial crisis, just to give you perspective. And again, the goal is to hold the economy in suspended animation. Workers are going to lose their jobs, but we're trying to prevent poverty. We're trying to prevent businesses from going bankrupt. Now, what they did on the worker side, we think was great and maybe even a little too great. There's folks actually making more now on unemployment than they ever did at their normal jobs. On the business side, the devil is definitely in the details. And I want you to think of the number 75, 25. 75% of what a small business takes has to go to the employees. They have to keep 100% of their salary on, or their staff on, at 100% of their salary pre-COVID. We just think a lot of businesses, with the uncertainty of, if you're a restaurant at my 25 capacity until next year, when do I get to 50? How long can I do that and keep my staff? So we just think a lot of small businesses might opt to actually declare bankruptcy as opposed to take this quote forgivable loan that won't be forgivable if they don't adhere to the 75-25. Now there's talk of more. So we'll see what happens. There may need to be more done, but time will tell with that. What does all this mean? Moving to the next slide. It's going to be ugly, and the recession is definitely deep, and we are in it. This is showing unemployment. As of April, we were sitting at 14.7%. We do think we're probably going to be over 20% unemployment. And to give you perspective, the highest unemployment we've had post WW2 was 10.8. So it is considerable. The GDP number for the second quarter will be ugly as well. We're calling for probably around -30. The third quarter will be, look GDP wise negative about what the first quarter did, certainly not -30. We think the fourth quarter of this year will be a little flat, showing signs of acceleration into 2021. And that's when we think the economy really gets cooking, is next year. So 2020, the year of the virus, 2021, the year of the recovery. And we do think it will be full on recovery. Demand for all goods, all services, businesses starting to make revenues and profits again, unemployment starting to come down, maybe even long-term interest rates start to drift up. So what I definitely want to get across is this is different. This was not the financial crisis. This was not the tech bubble. We know there is light at the end of this tunnel. It is event driven. We were in a very good spot, lowest unemployment in 50 years, economy moving right along. The American middle class had the highest savings rate since the 1970s. Businesses were in good spot. We think we're going to get there again. If we move to the next slide, where do we see the opportunities? Because I think that's the most exciting thing to talk about. And we're seeing some now, right? Tech is through the roof. We're finding tremendous opportunities there. Healthcare, vaccines, therapies, so many good things coming from that. Consumer staples, things that we always need. Communication services, we're sitting now on Zoom. It's amazing what we can do now with technology. Financials, and I'm not talking about banks, right? But asset managers, other things that are doing very well during this. So there are plenty of opportunities, not just within equities or stocks, but within bonds as well. Really love municipals right now. And we definitely think you're going to have higher taxes going forward. So, and you're getting a bump in income and you're still staying high quality. So opportunities abound. There is light at the end of this tunnel. I love the happy index is up. Breathe in confidence, breathe out worries. And with that, I will turn it back over to you, Bobby.
All right, Nicole, thank you very much for that. Let me minimize. I'm going to stop sharing here. Let me bear with me. Okay. So Nicole, again, thank you so much. And so next I want to introduce a new member of our team here locally. So Mike McFall is our new Director of Participant Services for the retirement plans that we serve. And he's also an Associate Wealth Advisor with our firm. Mike's been a financial advisor for over 12 years. He's got a lot of experience and learned a lot of great things from some of the biggest financial firms in the country. And most recently, Mike was the retirement plan consultant to the Roper St. Francis Hospital System retirement plan. So he basically was the person that was in charge of educating all 6,000 plus of the Roper St. Francis Hospital employees, all the doctors, nurses, and support staff, administrative staff, educating them about the retirement plan, about the different investment options, and counseling them on saving for retirement. So Mike is again new to our team, and we're really excited to have him on board to help us serve our clients. So with that, Mike, if you would share your screen and turn on your video and take it from there to talk about market volatility.
Excellent. Thank you, Bobby. And I believe, Bobby, you have to start my video up.
Yep. All right. There we go. Mike, did you get a message from it? There you go.
I did.
Okay.
Thank you.
Great.
Good afternoon, everyone. Hello. And as Bobby mentioned, my name is Michael McFall, and I am the new Director of Participant Services for Bobby and the firm here. And so I'm honored to be a part of this presentation today. And I'm going to speak to really some of the volatility in the market and just kind of touch on how things look like from an investor standpoint. One moment here, let me get back. All right, so this screen here, okay, so what the market has shown is over the past 40 years, so you're going to see at the bottom, we go from 1980 all the way to 2019. So it's a 40-year snapshot of the market and how it's done over that time period. And what you're going to see, as the title says, that the market has been resilient over that time. And the way you want to read this is the blue graphs here, okay? So these blue graphs indicate where the market finished and ended for that calendar year. So in this example, in 1980, the market ended up 26%. The next year, the market was down 10. And as you can see, for the most part, the market did well over that 40-year window. I've actually done the math for you guys, but there are 30 up years. There is just one neutral year, and there's 8 down years during that time period. But additionally, along with that, you're going to see this light gray dot. What that represents is what the market's lowest point at any point in time during the year was. So back to that first example in 1980, yeah, the market finished up 26%, but at one point in time during the calendar year of 1980, the market was down 17%. And as I kind of keep going along, this is something that does take place each year. Yeah, when the markets are doing great and we're riding like that wave and we're thinking about positive news, we may forget that at one point in time, the market was down. Right here in 1987, we had that Black Monday event in November where basically the world market, in some respects, crashed and the market was down 34% in November. Certainly rebounded some of that back and was up 2% for the year. Kind of go along here. We see from 2000 onward, we had the dot-com bubble. Obviously, we had the Great Recession in 2008. And certainly that's something that I can speak to as well. So going into my 13th year here in the finance industry, I did start back in 2007. And I started my career at Merrill Lynch, got my licenses, and for lack of a better word, definitely got baptized in the fire and experienced firsthand the financial crisis at that time. But what I really wanted to touch on more specifically is the calendar year of 2016. And many of you might not remember what took place in 2016, but the reason why I'm touching on that is there is some parallels to currently 2020. While it's not as drastic and severe as what took place, as what's taking place now, but I'm going to share with you some interesting facts that took place in January. So as you can see in 2015, the market was down the prior year. It was down 1%. And so at the beginning of the year, there were probably some concerned individuals thinking, okay, well, what's 2016 going to look like? Well, right off the bat, the first day of trading, the market was down close to 2%. And what was taking place in January? A lot. China devalued the currency. They pegged the yuan down. And why did they do that? Well, China was getting a lot of competition from countries like India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, And what was going on is a lot of companies were basically moving their manufacturing to other countries, basically to compete at lower cost. So China pegged down their currency, and that just threw a mention in the market. And the market got extremely volatile. Along with that, oil prices were extremely volatile at that time. So OPEC and Russia were essentially having a stare down at that time, and who was going to flinch and blink first. Well, OPEC elected to open the spigots, let out some more oil, and that only suppressed oil prices even lower, dropping below $27 a barrel. So obviously that was volatile then as well. Going along with that, Brexit was taking place. The populist movement in the UK was just starting. There was some concern about the UK leaving the EU and how that was going to affect the economy. And then really on the tail end of 2015, Greece just went through their debt crisis, and there were some concerns about that in the world economy. So as we can see, 2020, the US economy is doing well, but there's a lot of worldwide events that are taking place that are affecting the markets today. And so with that being said, you're not going to see the data for 2020, but for 2020, on March 23rd, for 2020, the market was down 30%. Think about that. On March 23rd, the market was down 30%. Just remember 2 months ago, how you felt at that time. It just seemed like, that was it. The sky was falling. As Bobby has alluded to, the market's resilient. The American economy perseveres and makes it through that. And as of today, after markets close, we have rebounded all the way back up to be down just at around 8%. So the market's had a 22% rebound from its low on March the 23rd to today's date on May the 20th. Who knows what the future holds? But what I'm getting at as an investor, you want to think about the long term. You want to think the long game. And so many times in my 13 years as being a financial planner, financial advisor, working with clients, working with participants at Roper St. Francis, I'll come across individuals, whether they're 30 years old, 40 years old, or 50, even 60. And naturally, like most of us, they'll panic and they want to get out of the market. And like, Mike, I've had it. I want to get out. And I try to play the role jokingly as a therapist and just make them aware, like, hey, we've been through these events before. But as an example, in 2016, back to that, just in the month of January, the market was down 8.6%. So that was the worst January. Actually, it was tied for the worst January with 2009. So if you sold in January thinking the rest of the remaining 11 months was going to be a negative performance, well, you missed out on potentially a 20% rally and you sold low. And same thing in this example. I've interacted with individuals that elected to sell during this time period, whether it's their retirement plans or their individual investments. And yet here we are rebounding 22%. And so as you look at this chart, you're thinking, okay, well, maybe I need to be more proactive and time the market. It's easier said than done, and it's extremely difficult. And I'm going to show you a slide here that kind of explains that. So what you're seeing here is basically the S&P 500 from 1990 to 2019 over a 30-year window. Basically, what does a $1,000 investment in 1990, you kept it in the market, what does it look like at the end of the year? Well, that 1,000 grew to 17,273. That's phenomenal. It's hard to do, probably for many of us, but it just goes to show where you just kind of trust the process, stay the course, think the long game. Well, you certainly benefited from that. Going along with that, over that 30-year window, if you elected to get out of the market and you're thinking, oh, I'm going to time it and get back in. Well, if you just simply missed the best day over that time period, well, okay, you had 15,000. But if you just missed the 5 best days over all of those market days during that time period, you basically had a lower return of 6,000 lower and onward. And as you can see, as we keep going down, it's really difficult. I spent some years in Chicago. I've worked with traders. I had clients that were active traders. And it's really hard just from a standpoint of, kind of doing our day-to-day lives of being a husband, a father, working our jobs full time, travel. It's really difficult to keep tabs on the market, and just missing the 15 best days during that window. Well, now you're down 11,000 from what you could have been. And during my course of this research, I came across some really interesting information I'm going to share with you. And it's not in the same time period, but in the 2000s, from 2000 to 2019, the 6 best days were within 2 weeks of the 10 worst days in the market. Again, from 2000 to 2019, just the 6 best market days were within 2 weeks of the 10 worst days in the market. So if you were elected to sit in cash and I'm going to sit this out for a month, you very likely missed out on those 6 possible days during that 2-week window. And it just goes to show and prove that just staying the course, staying invested, trust the process, certainly listen to myself and Bobby and others as far as the expectations and seeing your end goal, where you want to get to. And lastly, over at the end here, what this is showing you is if you invested $1,000 in a 1-month UST bill all those years ago in 1990, well, yeah, you did well, but it got $2,200. Whereas if you just dealt with the anxiety of the stock market, trying to get in and out, and you missed those 25 best days, well, your total performance was 4,300. And I'm going to kind of wrap it up with this, and it's a comment from Warren Buffett, but I think it really encapsulates these 2 slides. And what he said is the market is the most efficient mechanism in transferring wealth from impatient investors to patient investors. Once again, he said the market is the most efficient mechanism in transferring wealth from impatient investors to patient investors. And so at the end of the day, as the saying goes, just trust the process. Just trust that it's going to get you to where you want to be. And certainly leverage us, utilize myself and Bobby. We're here for you. And we'd be happy to help out in any way that I can. Other than that, I'm going to pass it on back to Bobby. Thank you so much.
Hey, thank you, Mike. Greatly appreciate that. So thank you for sharing there. Let me turn my video back on. There we go. And bear with me as I great. All right. So I'm going to pick up where Mike left off talking about the markets in general. And so this is just a walk back through time and a little bit different look at the history of the market. This is back from 1926 to 2019. And it shows the market highs and rising periods of time here, as you see here, how long it lasted and how high it went. And contrary to that, it shows the bear markets defined by a 20% drop or more. And you can see how deep it goes down here in the depression at 83% down, and then the length of time that it lasted, and then the recovery thereafter. So our theme for this is beach balls, traffic, and sunscreen, and it's going to be Memorial Day weekend. I don't know what the impact of coronavirus is going to have on those that are not practicing social distancing on the beaches and whatnot, but I know Americans want to get outside and get some fresh air and get some vitamin D. And so our theme with the beach balls, traffic, and sunscreen, this slide speaks to the fact of the market going down and the market going back up. And what you see here is, if you think about a beach ball, if you're swimming in a pool or if you're at the beach and you push it underwater, if you push it under a little bit, and you let go, it kind of comes back up. But the farther you push it under, yeah, as we all know, when you let go, the higher it goes up and jumps up out of the water. And the market is resilient and has done that time and time again. You can see here the history of the drops, how relative to the rise of the market in general, how infrequent the drops are, and relative to the increasing times of how short how short that period of down lasts. So this demonstrates, that it's both very hard to time when to get out and when to get back in, but also just how it rewards patient investors. Back to what Mike was saying about Warren Buffett's quote, it's very efficient over the long haul. The market's very inefficient in the short term. That's why I always said for many years going before into this, that if somebody doesn't want to invest for at least a 5-year period of time, it's always been my belief that that money doesn't have any place of being in the stock market, because you just never know with the sequence of returns. You never know when you're making an investment, is it going to be the next period where it's down for 3 years, or is it going to be a rising market for 3 years? So you want to stick to that long-term time horizon. We covered that a bit. Mike covered that. So our next, the next slide here, the traffic, beach balls, traffic, and sunscreen. And so what this represents, what this slide is showing you, is from 2010 to 2019, the performance of what we call different asset classes. So in each of your portfolios, we diversify across most, if not all, of these different asset classes. And that is ranging from large company stocks, medium-sized stocks, to small company stocks, to bonds, to real estate, U.S., international, emerging market stocks. It gets deep. But this shows the return, again, ranking the highest return for each calendar year, all the way down to the lowest return of each and every one of these asset classes. And so in our industry, we call this the Skittles chart. And you can imagine why, if you open a bag of Skittles, dump it out on the conference room table, this might be what it looks like. And I always, when I put it in front of someone, say, take a look at this and tell me what you see. What do you see any patterns to it? And after studying, they'll admit, there's really no patterns to it. And so the example I use here for this demonstration is the small cap value asset class, picking it primarily because it's a color that kind of sticks out on the chart to me. And so in 2010, this asset class earned a 24% rate of return, which is more than double the long-term average of the market. That's a really good return, as we were recovering from the last Great Recession. And so earning a 24% return that year. So many investors looking at that would have said, hey, I want to put my money there, and maybe more so of it than we would even recommend, because we want to keep that diversification. You'll see why in a moment. But the very next year, that small cap value asset class was down 5%. So back to the market timing theme, you may have someone that says, well, I don't like that. I don't, I don't want to lose my money, much less get a lower return, when you've got, core fixed income and real estate and high yield, that are earning positive returns. So maybe that person sells out of that because they didn't like it anymore. They didn't like losing that money. Well, what happened the very next year is small cap value earned 18%. And then the following year it earned 34%. And then it was arguably an underperformer again, and then it even lost money. So the theme here is the traffic theme. And if you're on a 4-lane highway and cruising down the road and 60, 65 miles an hour, and the traffic in front of you comes to a stop, and the traffic in the other lanes are still moving, or are maybe fast, maybe slow, you almost always see people in front of you jump out and try to get in the lane that keeps on going. And inevitably what happens, we know that, that lane eventually will slow down, and then that person may try to jump back in and cut you off, or whatever the case may be. So the theme here is that, don't try to jump out of different asset classes because of what's going on in the economy. We want to stick to our discipline. We want to stick to a diversified portfolio. don't try to jump out of stocks now unless it's money you're going to need in the next 12 months and you didn't plan for this accordingly. You maybe didn't have enough cash reserve. For all of you know, I mean, if you heard me say 100,000 times the term bear market bucket, we want to make sure that our clients have that bucket of money that's for the bear market for now, that it will sustain them for the period of time when the market drops. Because it's not if it's going to drop, it's when. We absolutely know it's going to happen. It's normal. But the decisions you make during this time period, will affect you financially over the course of the rest of your life. So it's one of the reasons we take what we do right now so seriously, and we're working so hard as we are, because we know our clients, need us now more than ever, even just to be that sounding board to reassure that, hey, you're positioned well and things are going to be okay, and really take advantage and capitalize on the great opportunities that are being presented now. So again, the traffic theme is you don't want to be chasing returns. You want to stick with the plan, stick with the disciplined approach, and don't be jumping in and out of the lanes of traffic, so to speak. Okay, so the last theme of that is the sunscreen, and the sunscreen comment is about being proactive. You can control the weather outside, but you can't control the sun's rays. You can't control the weather outside, but you can put on sunscreen to protect yourself. And some ways to do that, again, is that diversified portfolio, is staying diversified, not having all your eggs in one basket. And having, again, that bear market bucket and sticking to that. And so the other is sticking to the long-term plan, sticking to the discipline of it. And some great opportunities that are presenting themselves right now are things such as refinancing your mortgage. For those of you that have a mortgage, even if you got it maybe 4 years ago, when rates seemingly were pretty low, rates are super low right now. So and being proactive is taking a look at what your current mortgage rate is. Check with your mortgage banker. Shop for various rates and terms of 15-year amortizations or 30-year fixed rate mortgages, and compare and see what's available out there. The other opportunities are, with Nicole and many economists believing that I won't say maybe the worst is yet to come, but there's going to be some very, very challenging times here in front of us over the course of the rest of 2020. And personally, I believe the market is going to drop down. But all of you know very well, one of the very first things I said is I can't predict the market. I have no idea what it's going to do. But in this case, it does look like there's going to be even now some great buying opportunities. So excess cash, if you have excess cash on hand, this is likely going to be one of the great buying opportunities in your lifetime, or at least over the course of the rest of your lifetime. So please let us know if you want to talk about that. And for, again, back to that, sticking with the discipline, for those of you that are in company sponsored retirement plans and 401ks and profit sharing plans and stuff like that, sticking with that discipline of continuing to buy, because you're just buying shares at a lower cost. So it's a great opportunity, again, to be buying low, which we want to do over time. And so continuing that discipline and continuing that payroll deduction is always proven to be a great thing as the market goes down and then recovers. But another Warren Buffett quote that I've been sharing with people lately and reading is that, as he said, if you were lucky, and he stresses, if you're lucky, every 10 to 15 years, the economic skies will turn dark and briefly it will rain gold. And he says, get outside with your bucket. And what he means by that is taking advantage of opportunities like this when the market's down, and get outside with your bucket and take advantage of those opportunities, because America is not going out of business. That I feel confident in for sure. So would like to thank you again for taking time to talk with us today and be a part of our discussion today. We hope you found it beneficial. I must say that despite being unhappy for the reason we are in this position, given the just pure pain and suffering that people are going through physically and financially, it really has been invigorating for me and my team. We have been working so hard to help you, and in times like this, it's really what we're built for. I really feel, I strongly believe, the first 30 years of my career in building my team was preparing us for today. And I'm just so proud of the A team that I have. It was not an overnight success in doing that, in building that, but I just have a great team of people that support me and support you. And we're working very hard to help you take advantage of these opportunities. And so I just want to thank you for the opportunity to be of service to you and to your families. And if I know that there's a lot of people out there that are in, concern and uncertainty. So, we're never too busy to help somebody that you care about. So if there's somebody that, you're talking to, a friend or family member that needs some guidance, we'll be happy to help. Been doing that a lot, the last several weeks. So in closing, again, it's not the way I planned to spend my 30th anniversary. My wife and I were actually supposed to be in Australia today, celebrating our 20th wedding anniversary and my 30th anniversary in business. But I'm glad that we can be here, to help serve our clients and when you need us the most. So thank you again for joining us today, and God bless you and God bless your loved ones. I'm going to stop for just a moment here to check to see if we have any questions that came in. And I don't see any right now. So with that, we'll sign off. So again, thank you so much, and have a wonderful evening. And if you need anything, we're here for you. Please reach out. Thank you very much.